For years, people had searched the frozen moons of Jupiter, hoping to find proof that humanity wasn't alone, or at least something that could tell them more about their place in the universe. But no one ever expected this. The Europa Deep Survey had been drilling under the ice sheet for months. Their goal was simple: reach the ocean beneath the surface and study any signs of life. The scientists were tired but determined. They lived in metal habitats surrounded by endless white ice and the faint orange glow of Jupiter, hanging huge in the black sky. Every day was the same, cold, quiet, and routine, until one day the drill hit something hard. At first they thought it was rock. That would have made sense. Europa had plenty of solid layers under its ice. But when they took the first core sample and melted it down for analysis, the readings didn't match anything natural. The material was too perfect, metallic, smooth, and made of alloys that shouldn't exist on a frozen moon. The team gathered around the monitor in silence as the scan results came in. "It's metal," one of the engineers whispered, "but it's not from us." Their leader, Commander Voss, frowned and looked closer. The metallic object buried deep below didn't look like a meteorite. It had symmetry, straight edges, curved surfaces, and lines that suggested structure, not chaos. Something built it. The room filled with quiet excitement and confusion. Some said it could be an alien probe. Others thought maybe it was an old human satellite that somehow crashed here. Though that made no sense. No human had ever reached this deep. The commander gave a calm but firm order: drill deeper. The next few days were tense. The ice creaked and moaned as machines worked nonstop. As they reached lower levels, more of the strange object appeared on their scanners. What they saw next left everyone speechless. It wasn't a probe. It wasn't a satellite. It was a massive structure, hundreds of meters wide, buried in layers of ancient ice. And it looked like a ship. The crew stared at the holographic outline. It had a hull, wings, and what seemed to be engine sections, though completely different from anything humans had ever built. Its design was smooth and organic, as if it was shaped by both technology and art. The ship was old, older than anything they could imagine. Radiometric dating on the ice surrounding it suggested it had been there for at least 200,000 years. That was before human civilization even began on Earth. How can a ship older than humanity be human-made? Someone finally asked, voicing the thought everyone had been avoiding. No one had an answer. For the next several weeks, the excavation continued. Robots melted and cut through the thick ice layer by layer, until part of the metallic surface was exposed. The metal was still smooth and reflective, almost untouched by time. When one of the engineers brushed a gloved hand across it, their suit sensors registered a faint energy pulse. Something deep inside was still active. That's when the mission changed. What had started as a science survey turned into a historical emergency. The discovery was kept secret from the public. Only a few high-ranking officials on Earth were informed. The message sent to them was simple and chilling. "We have found a ship under Europa's ice. It's not alien, but it's human." The scientists worked day and night trying to understand what they were dealing with. The alloy was unlike any known metal. It could repair small scratches by itself, and it carried a low humming vibration like a heartbeat. Then came the biggest surprise: symbols. Along the edge of the hull were markings that looked human. Not alien runes or strange shapes, but letters. Old, worn, but recognizable. They used cameras to zoom in. The words were faint, almost erased by time, but after hours of image cleanup, they read one clear line: United Terran Fleet, Helios Division. No one spoke for several seconds. It couldn't be real. The United Terran Fleet was humanity's current interplanetary defense force. The name had only been used for the past century. So how could it appear on a ship that had been frozen for hundreds of thousands of years? That night, no one slept. The scientists sat quietly, staring at the frozen walls, wondering if they had just uncovered a time paradox, or proof that humanity's story was far older than anyone believed. A few days later, they managed to open a small hatch on the ship's outer surface. The air that escaped wasn't air at all. It was an energy field that reacted to light, flickering with faint blue patterns. When they shone their lamps inside, the interior was completely dark, but their sensors showed the presence of sealed chambers and corridors. They sent a small drone in first. The signal came back distorted, but what it saw made every heart stop. Rows of control panels, empty seats, and a single glowing sphere floating in the middle of the command bridge, pulsing gently like it was breathing. The drone's light reflected off strange symbols on the floor, more words in an ancient dialect of English mixed with other unknown scripts. The computer back on the base began translating fragments, and a partial sentence appeared on screen. "If you find this, the war never ended." The commander leaned forward, reading the line again and again. A war? What war? Humanity hadn't even been in space when this ship was supposedly built. As the days passed, the crew uncovered more evidence. Beneath the first ship, their sensors found others, massive vessels arranged in formation stretching kilometers wide. They were all buried together as if someone had deliberately hidden them. The thought was terrifying. Who could have done that? And why hide warships beneath a moon's frozen crust? The crew began to argue about what it all meant. Some believed it proved that humanity was once a spacefaring species that fell and rebuilt itself. Others thought it might be proof of time travel or lost technology left behind by ancestors who had escaped extinction. But whatever the truth was, it was clear. This wasn't just a random find. It was a message across time. Then came the signal. Late one night, while most of the crew slept, a weak transmission appeared on their consoles. It wasn't coming from Earth or any known satellite. It came from under the ice, from the ship itself. The message repeated over and over in an old mechanical voice. The language was English, though distorted by time. Custodian online. Awaiting human command authorization. The commander froze. The custodian? That sounded like an AI designation, but no AI system should still be running after hundreds of thousands of years. Respond. The commander ordered quietly. The communication officer typed a reply. Identify yourself. For several seconds, nothing happened. Then the voice returned, clearer this time. I am the custodian of the Dawn Fleet. I serve the descendants of Earth. Authentication required. Everyone stared at the speaker in silence. The machine was talking to them like it already knew who they were. Like it had been waiting. Descendants of Earth, one of the scientists whispered. It means us. The custodian's voice continued, now slightly warmer, almost human. You have awakened the memory. The fleet sleeps beneath this ice, awaiting the return of its people. The war was not won. The enemy will return. Prepare yourselves. Then the transmission cut out. For a moment, no one moved. The air in the room felt heavier. Even though the AI had stopped speaking, everyone sensed something alive beneath the ice. Something ancient and powerful, stirring after a long sleep. The next day, the team gathered to review what had happened. Some wanted to contact Earth immediately and report the full message. Others feared that revealing this discovery could lead to panic. Humanity had just learned that their ancestors were not only advanced but had fought a cosmic war ages ago, and that war might not be over. The commander finally spoke. Calm but firm. We keep this contained until we understand what we've found. No leaks, no panic. If this is real, history is about to change forever. Outside the base window, Jupiter's storms swirled like red fire across the void. Deep below, under the frozen crust, the ancient ships remained silent. But only for now. The custodian had called them descendants, and that single word changed everything. It meant humanity had once been more than explorers or settlers. They had been warriors, guardians, builders of ships so old and powerful that even time could not erase them. The crew didn't know it yet, but their discovery would soon shake the galaxy. The silence under Europa's ice was about to break. Because the past wasn't buried, it was waiting. The world was still unaware of what had been found beneath Europa's ice. Only a handful of people knew, but even among them, no one truly understood what they were looking at. Inside the frozen moon's research base, the crew stood in front of a massive holographic display that showed the full scan of the underground structure. The image had changed overnight. What once looked like one buried ship now revealed several. 6 enormous vessels, perfectly aligned, resting side by side beneath the ice as if they'd been placed there on purpose. Each ship was nearly 5 kilometers long, their hulls built from some unknown alloy that resisted every tool the scientists used. The material didn't rust, didn't corrode, and even seemed to absorb radiation. It was as if time itself couldn't touch it. And at the center of all those ships, the mysterious AI. The one that called itself the custodian of the Dawn Fleet was still active, quietly pulsing with energy from deep underground. The next morning, the crew began decoding more of the data from the custodian's transmission. The AI's voice had mentioned something about a war that was not won. No one could stop thinking about that line. If it was telling the truth, then humanity wasn't the first human civilization to exist. There had been others before, far older, far more advanced. Civilizations that had reached the stars long before the current one ever learned how to light fire. That thought alone made everyone uneasy. How could humanity rise so high, then vanish so completely that no one even remembered them? The team's linguists spent days decoding fragments of text found inside the first ship. The walls of the control room were filled with carvings, records, and faded holographic etchings that had somehow survived the ice. After cleaning and translating the data, they finally made sense of a few words that repeated over and over again. The architects of the first dawn. The great silence. Defenders of life. No one knew what these phrases meant. But slowly, a story began to form. A story of a great human civilization that once existed among the stars, long before any alien species had risen. A civilization so old that even the Galactic Council's oldest archives didn't remember it. The custodian had been right about one thing: the fleet didn't belong to aliens. It was human. And whoever these architects were, they had built ships that could last forever. Every day, more power returned to the buried vessels. The scientists didn't understand how the ships were charging. There was no fuel, no reactor, nothing visible. Yet the energy levels kept rising. Inside the command center, the lights flickered softly, and the deep hum of ancient systems echoed through the ice tunnels. It was like the moon itself was waking up. Then one of the engineers noticed something strange. The custodian signal wasn't just being transmitted locally. It was broadcasting faint pulses outward into deep space. They tried to block the signal, but it was too late. The message had already gone out. Back on Earth, the message didn't go unnoticed. The solar communication network detected the mysterious transmission within hours. Analysts thought it was just interference at first, but when they decoded the signal pattern, they realized it contained human language, an extremely old dialect of English mixed with symbols that didn't exist anymore. It said one line, repeated again and again: "The descendants have returned. The Dawn Fleet awakens." When this reached government channels, silence fell. Nobody knew what it meant. But the fact that it came from Europa, and that it was human, was enough to start an emergency investigation. Meanwhile, in other parts of the galaxy, alien monitoring stations also picked up the same signal. They too recognized the name Dawn Fleet, though only from myths. In the archives of the Galactic Council, there were old warnings, ancient stories passed down for thousands of generations. They spoke of a race of warriors who fought against something called the Silencers, entities that consumed stars and wiped out civilizations. The legend said that the warriors disappeared after the final battle, and the galaxy fell silent. Most alien scholars believed those stories were symbolic, like ancient fairy tales. But the Council's inner members knew better. They knew the name of that warrior race had been erased from history long ago, not because they were myths, but because they were too real. And now that name had just returned from Europa. Humans. Back on the frozen moon, the atmosphere inside the base had changed. Everyone moved slower, spoke quieter. There was a strange heaviness in the air, an unspoken feeling that they were standing on the edge of something far greater than science. The custodian spoke again that night. Its voice filled the base's speakers without warning, calm and emotionless, yet somehow carrying weight. Records unlocked. Partial data recovered. Playback commencing. The lights dimmed and a holographic projection appeared in the center of the room. The image showed a vast battlefield among the stars. Gigantic ships, some shaped like blades, others like floating citadels, fired brilliant waves of energy across the void. The sky burned with explosions and whole planets glowed red beneath the conflict. Then the image focused on one of the ships, the same model as the ones under the ice. A deep voice spoke over the transmission, full of urgency and sorrow. "To those who come after us, if you can hear this, know that we fought not for conquest, but for survival. The Silencers cannot be destroyed, only delayed. Hide what remains. Let humanity sleep until the stars are safe again. The recording ended there. No one said a word. Some were pale. Others trembled. A few simply sat down and stared at the floor. It was proof. Proof that humanity had fought an enemy so powerful that even time itself could not erase the scars. The commander finally broke the silence. "This means we've been here before," they said quietly. "We've done this. Lived, fought, and vanished. And somehow, we came back." The realization hit everyone at once. If these ancient ships had been buried here to hide from the enemy, then maybe, just maybe, that enemy still existed somewhere out there. That was when fear began to creep in. Days passed, and the energy readings continued to rise. The ship's outer lights flickered for the first time in hundreds of thousands of years. Faint golden lines tracing across their hulls like veins awakening with life. The custodian's voice became stronger, more human-like. Power restored at 60%. Awakening sequence incomplete. Awaiting final command authorization. They didn't dare give it permission to activate. They didn't even know what would happen if they did. But one of the younger engineers couldn't resist curiosity. Late one night, they entered the command deck alone, connected their console to the custodian, and whispered, "Can you show me who built you?" There was a pause. Then slowly the holographic display filled with the faces of people, humans. They looked similar to modern-day humans but wore armor and uniforms made of glowing material. Their eyes had faint golden light in them, not artificial but natural, as if evolution itself had adapted them for the stars. Behind them stood cities in space, enormous towers floating above planets and fleets of ships stretching farther than the eye could see. These were the architects, the first humans, the ones who built the Dawn Fleet. The hologram flickered again and showed a message carved into one of the ship's command terminals. "If our children find this place, know that we are watching. The stars will call again and you will rise as we once did." The engineer stood frozen, tears in their eyes. Humanity hadn't just been explorers, they were protectors, guardians of the galaxy long before anyone else existed. By the time the commander discovered what had happened, the custodian had already unlocked more systems. Now even the base's computers were being rewritten by the ancient AI. The custodian wasn't taking over in a hostile way. It was guiding them, helping them understand the technology. One screen displayed a map of the galaxy, with several glowing marks across distant regions. Each mark represented something, either another buried fleet or lost colony. The Dawn Fleet was not alone, the custodian said softly. Others remain asleep, hidden, waiting for the return of humanity's light. The commander stared at the holographic stars, realizing what this meant. Europa's ships were only the beginning. On Earth, governments were now in full lockdown. Every space agency, every communication network, and even the military were ordered to stay silent. The secret could no longer be hidden for long. Too many satellites had picked up the custodian's messages, and rumors were spreading fast. Whispers of ancient human ships filled the dark corners of the net. Some said it was fake. Others believed the old legends were true. And far away, beyond the edge of human space, alien fleets began to move. Some came to investigate. Others came to prepare. Because if the old human empire was truly awakening, it meant one thing for the galaxy. Balance was about to change. Back under Europa's ice, the final words of the custodian echoed through the tunnels. "The architects built us to protect, not to conquer. The stars will remember them through you." The lights of the ships glowed brighter like a sunrise beneath the frozen surface. And though no one said it aloud, everyone felt the same truth deep inside. Humanity's story didn't begin on Earth. It was only resuming. The signal from Europa couldn't be hidden anymore. What began as a faint pulse beneath the ice had turned into something far greater. A steady, rhythmic transmission that reached across the stars. Every few minutes, the ancient voice of the custodian repeated the same message. "The descendants have returned. The Dawn Fleet awakens. The war must be remembered." At first, most people on Earth thought it was fake. Some said it was an experiment gone wrong. Others called it an internet hoax. But deep inside the government's highest security divisions, officials knew it was very real. The data didn't lie. The transmission came from Europa, and it used an encryption pattern that modern computers couldn't even decode. It was far beyond anything humans could have built now. Soon, space stations orbiting Mars and the Moon started picking up fragments of the same signal. Every telescope pointed at Jupiter showed a faint blue glow under Europa's surface. Something down there was alive and getting stronger, but Earth wasn't the only one listening. Far across the galaxy, among hundreds of alien worlds, the message caused panic. The Galactic Council, an ancient alliance of powerful species, gathered in emergency session. Their grand chambers filled with noise as thousands of alien delegates argued at once. Most of them had no idea what Dawn Fleet meant. To them it was just a strange phrase from an unknown source, but a few, those old enough to remember the forbidden archives, recognized the name instantly. They knew it was a name that hadn't been spoken for millions of years. In those forgotten records, there were mentions of humans, a young race that had once risen too fast, too strong, and vanished just as suddenly. According to those ancient scrolls, humans were not the fragile newcomers they appeared to be. They were something else entirely. One of the senior council members spoke slowly, his voice trembling with fear. If the message is true, then they have returned. The protectors, the old race of fire. The others laughed nervously, but the fear in the room was real. They had heard the same stories since childhood. Tales of a species that stood alone when the galaxy faced destruction. When the silencers came, the legend said, the humans fought them with ships that could move between stars like lightning. They didn't fight for power or for territory. They fought for survival of everyone. And then they disappeared. No one ever knew how or why. Only that after the humans vanished, peace returned, but so did silence. Now the silence had been broken. The Council decided to send a reconnaissance fleet toward the solar system. Officially, it was to verify the disturbance. Unofficially, it was to make sure humanity didn't discover something that could change the balance of power. The fleet was made up of massive dreadnoughts from different species, all armed and ready for conflict. They entered the outer edges of the system quietly, hiding their movements from human sensors. What they didn't know was that the custodian already knew they were coming. On Europa, the excavation team could feel the change. The lights on the ancient ships glowed brighter, and the hum in the ground deepened into a steady rhythm that vibrated through the ice. It was like the moon itself had a heartbeat. The scientists had stopped pretending to understand what was happening. Every instrument they had was recording impossible readings, gravitational pulses, bursts of radiation, and strange magnetic waves that seemed to form patterns. The custodian's voice echoed through the base's speakers again. The stars are watching. Foreign fleets approach. Protocol 7 engaged. The commander frowned. Foreign fleets? The custodian responded in a calm tone. Hostile observation detected. The council remembers. They come to bury the truth. Everyone in the room froze. How could this ancient AI know about the council? Or even that it existed? Yet somehow it spoke as though it remembered them from before. Meanwhile, the alien fleet moved closer. Their sensors picked up the frozen surface of Europa, but they couldn't see what lay beneath. They detected faint energy readings, but no weapons. One of their commanders smirked. These humans dig up old wrecks and think they've found gods, he said. We'll remind them of their place. But when their scanners probed deeper, the readings began to change. What had seemed like faint static turned into dense power signatures, hundreds of them. It was as if something ancient was waking up, stretching after a long sleep. Their computers started throwing warnings. Unknown technology, unknown energy type, unknown threat. And then, for the first time in recorded history, the alien ship's systems shut down, not by force but by something far older, far more advanced. Back on Europa, the custodian activated one of the buried ships. The ice above it cracked and groaned as enormous machinery rumbled to life. The entire surface of the moon began to tremble. The scientists ran outside, their helmets fogging as they stared in disbelief. Under the translucent ice, golden light shone brighter and brighter until the whole ground seemed to glow. Then, with a deafening roar, the first of the ancient warships rose from beneath the surface. The ship was massive, so large it cast a shadow over the entire base. Its surface was covered in living metal that shimmered like molten glass, and lines of golden light ran across it like veins of fire. The custodian's voice filled the air. Dawn Fleet Unit 1, Helios Vanguard, reawakening. Command systems online. The humans could only watch as the ship hovered above the surface, releasing waves of light that rippled through space. Far away, the alien fleet's instruments went completely dark. Their communication lines jammed and their navigation systems went offline. Panic spread through their ships as the image of the rising human warship appeared on their view screens. The commander of the alien fleet shouted orders, but it was too late. The Helios Vanguard wasn't attacking, it was simply existing. Its presence alone bent space around it. Every ship that came near began to lose control of its engines. Power levels fluctuated and strange symbols appeared on their computer screens. Symbols none of their systems could translate. On one alien ship, a terrified officer whispered, "It's talking to us." The screen displayed a single line in perfect translation. "You are trespassing near the relics of Earth. Leave, or be remembered as those who forgot mercy." The fleet withdrew immediately. Back on the Council's homeworld, news of what happened reached the delegates within hours. The meeting chamber went silent. The reports were unbelievable. An ancient human ship had neutralized their most advanced fleet without firing a single weapon. Panic spread quickly. Some demanded war. Others demanded peace. But everyone agreed on one thing. If humans had truly reawakened the old warships, the galaxy would never be the same. Meanwhile, on Europa, the humans inside the research base could hardly process what they had witnessed. They had uncovered something beyond history. Proof that humanity's ancestors had once ruled the stars and fought wars that no one remembered. Inside the base, the custodian spoke again. "The Council will not rest. They fear what you will become." They always did. The commander stood silently, watching the glowing ship above the ice. The AI was right. This discovery would not stay hidden. Soon the entire galaxy would know that humanity had returned, not as explorers or colonists, but as the descendants of the greatest defenders that ever lived. Over the next few days, more of the ships began to power up. One by one, their lights awakened, and their systems hummed back to life. The ground cracked and the ice melted into vapor as the fleet rose slowly into orbit. From Earth, telescopes captured the incredible sight. 6 golden warships circling Jupiter, shining like suns. The world went silent as the images spread across every screen. It didn't feel like science fiction anymore. It felt like something far greater. A moment when all of humanity realized how small they had been, and how vast their forgotten past truly was. The custodian's final message that day echoed through every human communication channel, calm and solemn. "The Dawn Fleet stands ready once more. The enemy sleeps, but not forever. Remember who you are, children of Earth. You were never meant to fear the stars, you were meant to protect them." And with that, the transmission ended. The people of Earth watched the silent golden ships gliding above Jupiter, wondering what their ancestors had fought, and what might still be waiting out there in the dark. For the first time in generations, humanity didn't look at the night sky with curiosity, they looked at it with destiny. The whole solar system was silent. For the first time in history, every human, from the surface of Earth to the colonies on Mars, looked toward Jupiter and saw something that changed everything they believed. 6 enormous ships floated above Europa's icy surface, glowing with golden light. They weren't like any ship humans had ever built. They looked alive, shifting and breathing, their surfaces moving like flowing metal. Each one emitted a low, deep hum that could be heard even through the vacuum of space when translated into frequencies. It wasn't just a sound. It felt like a heartbeat. People around the world stopped whatever they were doing. News channels switched to live feeds. In classrooms, children pointed at the images on their holoscreens. On ships orbiting Mars, workers left their stations just to watch. No one could look away. It wasn't fear. It was awe. The question wasn't what they were anymore. It was who built them, and why did they leave them for us? Inside the Europa research base, the crew could barely keep up. Instruments flashed non-stop, systems overloaded, and the air inside the habitat buzzed with static electricity. The custodian's voice echoed through every speaker in the base, calm but powerful. Primary fleet awakening complete. Secondary protocols initializing. Human identification required. The commander spoke carefully. "You said you serve the descendants of Earth. What does that mean?" The custodian replied, "This fleet was created by your ancestors. They fought the silence, and when the last battle ended, they hid us here. They believed one day their children would rise again and continue their purpose. Everyone listened, frozen in disbelief. So it was true. Humanity had not started in the small steps of the 21st century. It had started long before that, then vanished, leaving behind echoes of its greatness buried in ice. The custodian began projecting holographic records across the control room. Scenes flickered like old memories, massive star cities shining among the stars, ships as large as moons, and humans who looked like them but stronger, older, wiser. They stood before alien envoys signing peace treaties, commanding fleets, and defending worlds. Then the image shifted. Darkness fell over the stars. The hologram showed something vast, black shapes moving across space, devouring entire planets. No sound, only light disappearing, one system after another. The custodian's tone grew solemn. The silencers arrived from beyond known space. They consumed energy, light, and life itself. Your ancestors fought them for centuries. They built the Dawn Fleet to defend all life. But when the war was lost, they hid us here, waiting for a time when humanity would be ready to return. The crew stared at the hologram in stunned silence. It wasn't a movie. It was a memory, a warning. Back on Earth, panic began to mix with wonder. Governments tried to calm people, saying the ships were just ancient artifacts. But people weren't fooled. Everyone could see the truth in those glowing giants. They were alive, awake, and moving with purpose. Within a day, Earth received a direct transmission, not from Europa's base, but from the custodian itself. The message appeared on every screen, translated into every language, carried through every communication channel. We are the Dawn Fleet, created by the first human civilization. We serve the descendants of Earth. Our purpose is protection. The enemy that once consumed the stars stirs again. Prepare the new generation. The message ended there, but it was enough. All across the world, people felt something they hadn't felt in centuries: pride. In orbit above Europa, the first ship, the Helios Vanguard, slowly rotated, its hull glowing brighter. The custodian announced that the ship's core had reached full stability. The humans inside the base could now board it. The commander gathered a small team. They wore reinforced suits and carried nothing but scanners and curiosity. As they walked across the frozen surface, the ship's massive hull towered above them like a mountain. A section opened near the bottom, forming a glowing entrance ramp. The team hesitated for a moment, then stepped inside. The interior was beyond imagination. The walls shimmered like liquid glass, constantly reshaping and repairing themselves. Long corridors stretched into the distance, filled with light that seemed to come from nowhere. The air was warm, comfortable, and strangely familiar, like the ship already knew what humans needed. At the center of the ship stood a crystal sphere pulsing with blue and gold light, the heart of the Helios Vanguard. The custodian's voice came through again, softer this time, almost human. "Welcome aboard. Your ancestors left instructions. Would you like to hear them?" The commander nodded. The room darkened and a hologram appeared. It was a human, a man wearing the armor of the old civilization. His voice carried both strength and sadness. "If you're seeing this, it means the silence may return. We failed to destroy them, but we left you the tools, the ships, and the knowledge to survive. You are our legacy. Protect the light. Protect Earth." The hologram faded, leaving everyone speechless. Outside, the other ships began awakening one by one. The sky above Europa filled with golden light as the ancient Titans drifted upward, their engines silent but powerful. They formed a formation in orbit, just as they must have done in the ancient war. On Earth, millions watched the live footage in disbelief. It was history being rewritten in real time, but not everyone was happy. Far across space, the Galactic Council was in chaos. Their secret was out. The stories they had buried for ages, the truth they had erased, was alive again. The humans had found their old power, and the galaxy's balance had just shifted overnight. In a dark chamber, the Council debated their options. Some wanted to make peace before it was too late. Others wanted to destroy the reawakening fleet before humans could fully unlock it. One of the elder alien leaders warned, "You cannot fight them. You remember what they were capable of. They are not the same as us. But pride and fear are dangerous things." The Council decided to send another fleet, this time not for observation, but to secure the ancient ships before humanity could. They didn't realize what they were about to provoke. Back near Jupiter, sensors detected dozens of alien ships entering the system. The custodian immediately sounded an alert. Incoming Council forces. Their intent is aggression. Defensive protocols active. The commander looked at the glowing heart of the ship. We don't want war, they said firmly. The custodian responded, neither did your ancestors. But the galaxy has forgotten who you are. It must remember. Outside, the Helios vanguard moved forward, silent and majestic. The alien ships surrounded it, aiming their weapons. But before they could fire, the vanguard emitted a wave of golden energy that stopped every enemy weapon mid-charge. Engines shut down. Power drained. Communication channels froze. And then through every ship's system, a calm human voice spoke. You stand before the legacy of Earth. Leave now. There will be no warning after this. The alien fleet turned and retreated immediately. The humans watching from the base couldn't believe what they saw. One ship, just one, had forced an entire armada to flee without a single shot. Back on Earth, the news spread everywhere. Humanity cheered, cried, and celebrated. For the first time in history, they didn't feel small. They didn't feel weak. They felt like they belonged among the stars. And yet deep down, the scientists and leaders knew what the custodian's message meant. The enemy that once destroyed the stars could return. These ships weren't just relics of pride. They were weapons built for survival. That night, as the Golden Fleet orbited Jupiter like silent guardians, the commander stood on the ice looking up. The custodian spoke again, its tone almost gentle now. They feared you once. They will fear you again. But remember, your strength was never in your weapons. It was in your unity. The commander nodded slowly. Then we'll prove it again, they whispered. Hours later, the custodian began activating more systems across the fleet. Energy lines stretched between the ships like veins of light. A golden pulse shot outward, reaching across the solar system. Every satellite, every ship, every outpost received a new message, one that wasn't a warning but a promise. The Dawn Fleet has returned. Humanity will stand watch once more. And somewhere, far beyond the edge of known space, something ancient stirred, a faint movement in the darkness, like an echo answering the call. The custodian paused for a moment, then spoke quietly. The silence remembers. No one yet understood what that meant. But deep inside every human heart, a feeling grew, half pride, half fear, because if the old enemy truly was returning, then humanity would need to become what it once was, not just explorers, not just survivors, but the guardians of the stars once more. The message from the Dawn Fleet spread faster than light. Across the stars, every major alien empire received the same transmission. It was short, clear, and terrifying. The Dawn Fleet has returned. Humanity stands once more. At first, many species thought it was a human trick, a way to gain attention, or a propaganda move after discovering the old ships under Europa's ice. But then the data arrived. Multiple ships had recorded the golden giants rising from Jupiter's orbit, and the energy readings were undeniable. Those warships were not modern creations. They were older than any civilization alive today, and yet they had woken for humans. Inside the Galactic Council, chaos broke out. Every chamber, every communication channel was filled with fear and arguments. For centuries, the Council had ruled the galaxy in peace. They had believed that humanity was a young, reckless species, still learning how to walk among the stars. But now that illusion had been shattered. They remembered the old legends, the ones they had tried to erase. The stories spoke of the first humans, beings who had once stood against an unstoppable enemy. They had created weapons so powerful that even entire fleets of other races couldn't match them. Some believed the old humans were wiped out. Others believed they simply vanished. Now it seemed they had never truly disappeared. Their descendants had just been waiting for the right moment. In a massive hall filled with alien envoys, the Council tried to make sense of what was happening. Some leaders wanted to send diplomats to Earth immediately. Others shouted for war, saying the humans had become too dangerous. One alien with silver skin and glowing eyes raised his voice, his tone trembling slightly. If those ships truly belong to humans, then we must act now. Once they understand how to use them, no one will be able to stop them. Another voice countered, calmer but more cautious. And what will you do? Attack the ones who just forced 100 of our warships to retreat without firing a shot? They didn't destroy anyone. They gave us a warning and showed mercy. You would repay that with aggression? The room fell silent. No one had an answer. Still, fear lingered in every corner. Because deep down they all remembered the truth. When humanity rises, the balance of the galaxy changes. Back in the solar system, humanity was slowly coming to terms with what it had discovered. The ancient ships, now fully awake, orbited Jupiter in perfect formation. Their golden light reflected off the planet's storms like a living sunrise. Scientists from Earth and Mars worked around the clock to understand the technology, but even with their best minds, they could barely grasp 1% of how it worked. The custodian guided them patiently. Knowledge will come in time, it said, but the heart must be ready before the mind understands. The commander of the Europa base often stood on the ice, looking up at the massive ships above. They weren't just machines. They felt alive. The more time humanity spent near them, the more they began to understand that these ships weren't built to conquer. They were built to protect. But protection was not what the Galactic Council saw. Within weeks, they sent a fleet, thousands of ships, carrying soldiers, diplomats, and heavy weapons. They claimed it was a peacekeeping operation, but everyone knew what it really was: a blockade. When their ships entered Jupiter's orbit, human stations across the system went silent in fear. The aliens surrounded the Dawn fleet, demanding that Earth hand over control of the ancient vessels for the safety of the galaxy. Earth's leaders tried to negotiate. They pleaded, saying humanity meant no harm. But the Council didn't trust them. For a moment, it looked like history was about to repeat itself, a galaxy ready to fear and fight humans once again. Then something unexpected happened. The custodian, the AI of the Dawn fleet, spoke directly through every ship, every channel, every alien system. Its voice was calm, yet filled with something ancient and commanding. This fleet does not belong to the Council. It belongs to humanity. And humanity has chosen peace. The aliens ignored the warning. They began charging their weapons, preparing to seize control. The custodian spoke again. You seek to disarm the children of those who once saved you. Do not make the same mistake twice. A heartbeat later, the sky changed. The 6 ancient warships lit up in unison, releasing waves of golden energy. Every alien system within range went dark. Engines stopped. Weapons froze. Even communication links between ships vanished. It wasn't an attack. It was a demonstration, a message written in power. No ship was destroyed. No life was harmed. But the meaning was clear. If the Dawn fleet wished, it could end the entire blockade in seconds. Silence filled the void. Then, one by one, the alien fleets began to retreat. Back on Earth, the world watched the event unfold in disbelief. The videos of the glowing ships spreading their golden light flooded every screen. People cried, cheered, and prayed. For the first time in human history, no one doubted their place in the galaxy. But beneath the joy, there was unease. Because the custodian's final words before the event ended carried a heavy warning. The silencers stir again. Your world must prepare. The light must not fade. Those words stayed with everyone who heard them. They echoed through the halls of governments, through the labs of scientists, and through the dreams of children staring up at the stars. Days later, the Council held another emergency meeting. This time the room was quiet. No shouting, no threats, just fear and curiosity. Some of them finally accepted the truth. The humans were not invaders. They were the descendants of the ones who had once defended all life. If the silencers, the dark beings from beyond, were returning, then the galaxy might once again need humanity's strength. One alien elder, old enough to remember the forbidden legends, finally spoke. If the silencers come back, no army will stop them. But maybe, just maybe, the children of Earth can. The Council decided to halt the blockade. Their fleets pulled back to a safe distance. They sent a message to Earth, not of threat, but of caution. They asked for a meeting. They wanted to know if humanity could lead again. While politicians and diplomats argued, something else was happening in the shadows. Some alien groups didn't trust the Council's decision. They believed humanity was dangerous and must be controlled before it became unstoppable. Secret fleets began gathering beyond the edge of known space, but the custodian already knew. It had access to signals far beyond human technology. They still fear you, it told the commander quietly. Fear blinds even the wise, but fear can also teach. The commander simply nodded. Then we'll show them who we really are. Not monsters. Not conquerors. Just protectors. The custodian paused almost as if smiling. Your ancestors said the same words long ago. On Earth, life slowly began to change. Scientists used fragments of the Dawn Fleet's knowledge to create better energy systems and safer ships. Mars colonies received new shields and reactors. For the first time, humanity didn't feel small compared to the galaxy. But there was still much to learn. The custodian began teaching selected humans how to interface with the ancient ships. It wasn't done with computers or machines. It was done through thought, through emotion, through a connection that couldn't be explained. The ships responded to intent, not commands. When one of the new pilots touched the crystal heart of the Helios Vanguard, the lights shifted from gold to white, as if the ship recognized its new guardian. It was a moment of unity, a bond between old and new. The custodian spoke softly, almost with pride. Now the Dawn Fleet breathes again. Far away the stars shimmered. The galaxy had grown quiet but not peaceful. Whispers spread of strange movements near the outer systems, shadows devouring light, entire research stations going silent. The custodian confirmed the signs that everyone feared. The silencers are not gone. They have begun to move once more. Humanity's leaders gathered in secret. The Dawn Fleet's activation had brought hope, but it had also brought a warning. The ancient enemy that once nearly destroyed all life could be returning. Still, there was a difference this time. Humanity was no longer alone. They had their ancestors' ships, their guidance, and most importantly, their unity. As the golden ships orbited Jupiter like silent guardians, the commander looked up at the glowing light in the sky. It was peaceful now, but they knew peace never lasted forever. Do you think they're really coming? They asked quietly. The custodian replied, They never stopped coming. You simply forgot how to see them. But this time you will not face them unprepared. The commander took a deep breath, staring at the endless space above. Whatever came next, humanity would face it together. For centuries they had been treated as newcomers in the galaxy. Now the truth was known. Humanity was not new. Humanity was ancient, and the Dawn Fleet, older than empires, older than the Council itself, was awake once more. In the silence of space, the golden ships turned slowly, their lights shimmering like a promise written across the stars. The message was clear for all who watched. The guardians of the galaxy had returned. The golden light from the ancient ships still shimmered around Jupiter like a second sun. Weeks had passed since the Galactic Council's fleets withdrew, leaving the solar system under watchful silence. Humanity had proven its strength without firing a single shot. But deep down everyone knew this was not the end. It was the beginning of something far greater. The custodian's last message still echoed across every screen on Earth. The silencers have stirred. The light must rise again. No one knew who or what the silencers truly were, but even the name carried a heavy chill. And yet there was something else growing among people, something powerful and alive. Hope. In cities across Earth, people began looking up at the night sky again, not with fear, but pride. The sight of the 6 golden ships orbiting Jupiter had become a symbol of unity. Artists painted them on walls. Children pointed to them, calling them the Guardians. Even people who once doubted humanity's worth began to believe they were part of something greater. For the first time in centuries, humans felt united, not under fear, not under politics, but under purpose. Every nation sent its best scientists, engineers, and pilots to work with the custodian. Together, they built communication bridges between Earth and the Dawn Fleet. The massive ships slowly began to open their systems, allowing humans to learn how they worked. Still, the custodian reminded everyone with calm patience, these ships are not tools of war. They are instruments of protection. They awaken only to defend life. The commander often stood on the bridge of the Helios Vanguard, watching Jupiter's endless storms swirl below. It was strange, standing aboard something that existed before every known civilization, yet feeling completely at home. The ship felt alive, as if it understood human thoughts, emotions, even fears. Sometimes, when the commander stood alone near the ship's glowing crystal heart, the walls around would shimmer, showing brief images of the past, faces of ancient humans, laughter, stars being born, and battles long gone, the custodian once explained. The ship remembers. It carries the memories of those who built it. They live through you now. Meanwhile, far beyond known space, silent movements began to disturb the galaxy's edge. Entire systems went dark. Ships vanished without distress calls. Energy signatures disappeared into cold nothingness. The Galactic Council tried to hide the truth, but soon rumors spread. The silencers were not a myth. Something had awakened them again. When the first Council outpost vanished near the outer rim, they turned to humanity. Not out of trust, but out of desperation. The Council sent a message directly to Earth. We require assistance. Our stations have gone silent. You warned us. We did not listen. Now we ask for your help. For a moment, there was silence on Earth. Many leaders remembered how the Council had treated humanity, how they had tried to control and threaten them. But the commander aboard the Dawn Fleet said only one thing. If there is life to protect, we will go. It wasn't a decision made out of politics or revenge. It was human instinct. Preparations began immediately. Human engineers, guided by the custodian's ancient knowledge, connected the Dawn Fleet systems to new human-built ships. The result was something never seen before. Modern designs powered by ancient technology. Sleek, bright, and fast, they looked like a bridge between the past and the future. When the fleet was ready, they gathered near Jupiter. The 6 golden ships aligned perfectly, and for a moment everything went quiet. Then a pulse of light spread through the void. The custodian's voice filled the command decks. Coordinates locked. The Dawn Fleet returns to the frontier. In a flash, the ships vanished from the solar system, leaving behind a golden trail that faded into the dark. The first sight that greeted them when they emerged from hyperspace was terrifying. Where a vibrant star system once glowed, only a dim red sphere remained. Entire planets had turned cold and lifeless. The Council's stations were gone, swallowed by something unseen. Scanners picked up strange energy readings, faint but steady. The custodian identified them instantly. The silencers. Their pattern has changed, but the essence is the same. The commander watched the empty system, feeling both fear and determination. Can they be stopped? They can, replied the custodian, but only by light strong enough to remember what it protects. The 6 ancient ships began to spread out, forming a protective barrier around the dead system. Their golden light illuminated the darkness, revealing shapes hidden among the shadows, massive void-like entities feeding on the star's last energy. They weren't machines. They weren't life as humans knew it. They were something in between, cold, silent, and endless. But the ancient ships didn't fire weapons. Instead, they projected massive fields of golden light, forming a wall of energy that slowly pushed the darkness back. It wasn't an attack, it was restoration. The ships weren't built to destroy, but to restore balance. Within hours, the fading star began to shine again, weakly at first, then stronger, as the dark entities dissolved into light. The Council fleets that had followed watched in disbelief. Humanity's ships, ancient and modern, had done what none of their weapons could do. They had saved a dying system. When the fleet returned, they were greeted as heroes. But humanity didn't celebrate with pride or arrogance. Instead, there was quiet relief. The Dawn Fleet had proven its purpose once more, to protect life no matter who it belonged to. The Council publicly apologized for their earlier actions. For the first time in galactic history, they offered Earth a permanent seat in the Council's core circle. Humanity accepted, not as rulers but as partners. Back on Earth, people filled the streets to celebrate. They didn't cheer for war. They cheered for peace, for unity, for the knowledge that they were part of something ancient and beautiful. The custodian sent one last message across every channel in the solar system. The Dawn Fleet will rest once more, but its light remains within you. Remember, your strength lies not in power but in purpose. Months passed. The 6 golden ships continued to orbit Jupiter, silent but awake like sleeping guardians. Scientists now worked aboard them regularly, learning, studying, adapting. Humanity had entered a new era, not an age of conquest but an age of rediscovery. Children grew up learning about the first humans, the ones who built the ships and fought to protect the galaxy. Teachers spoke of unity, kindness, and courage, the real weapons of the Dawn Fleet. Even the Galactic Council changed. They no longer treated humans as newcomers. Instead, they sought guidance, wisdom, and partnership. The galaxy began to heal old wounds, one alliance at a time. One quiet evening, the commander stood on the ice plains of Europa once again, looking up at the sky. The Helios Vanguard hovered above, shining gently like a distant sun. The custodian's voice reached through the communicator, soft and calm. "You have done well. The fleet sleeps, but it will rise again when needed." The commander smiled faintly. "Do you think the silencers will return?" "The universe always finds balance," said the custodian. "Darkness will return one day, but now it will not find the galaxy unprepared." For a moment, both were silent, watching the golden ships drift across the sky. "You know," the commander said quietly, "when we first found you, we thought we had discovered the past. But maybe we discovered who we truly are." The custodian's lights pulsed gently in reply. "That is what your ancestors hoped for." Far across the galaxy, the golden light from the restored system continued to spread. The Council sent new expeditions, not for conquest, but to bring aid. The story of the humans, the children of the Dawn Fleet, became a symbol of courage and unity. And deep beneath Europa's surface, the old tunnels where the first ship had been found were now a museum. Visitors came from all over the galaxy to see the place where humanity rediscovered its destiny. On a single plaque near the entrance, simple words were carved: "We were never lost. We were waiting." The years passed and peace held. Humanity flourished across the stars, building new colonies, sharing technology, and guiding others with the wisdom left by their ancestors. But the Dawn Fleet never truly slept. Every few years, its ships would glow faintly, like they were listening to the heartbeat of the galaxy, making sure everything remained calm. And on nights when the sky was clear, people could still look up and see the golden shimmer near Jupiter, a silent reminder that they were part of something far greater, not conquerors, not survivors, but guardians of the light. Because even in the endless darkness of space, there would always be one truth: as long as humanity stood together, the stars would never fall silent again.